Hello there. Welcome to The Sleepless Scientist. Are you wrapped in blankets or adrift in a soft pool of lamplight? Is it midnight where you are, or are you hiding from sleep in the soft, strange quiet of dawn? Wherever you are, I'm glad you're here. Tonight we're going to drift together toward the very edge of everything and beyond. This isn't a question with an answer, it's a story with no ending. What exists outside the edge of the universe? You probably won't survive the answer, but you don't need to. You only need to imagine. So close your eyes, let your breath deepen, and take the first step. You are standing on the shoreline of forever. There's no sand beneath your feet, no wind against your face, only the soft, endless hush of space curling outward like breath through a sleeping mouth. Above you, a sky stitched with galaxies. Their light has travelled for billions of years through the thickening black to arrive tonight, just for you. You raise your hand toward a distant star. You can't touch it, but the light touching you now left its home before Earth had oceans. That's the secret the night sky hides. Every star is a memory, and some memories are too old to reach us. You are surrounded by the observable universe, a perfect sphere 93 billion light-years wide. Not because that's how far the universe is, but how far it has revealed itself, like fog lifting off a lake. The further you try to see, the more light fades into silence. That fading is your horizon. Imagine a vast ocean stretching beyond sight in every direction. You're floating in a lifeboat, around you a dome of fog. That's all you know. The sea could end a mile away, or ripple on forever. You'd never know. That's us, trapped inside the cosmic fog of what light has had time to reach us. But the fog is cheating, because the ocean beneath it is moving. Light has been travelling toward us for 38 billion years. But during that time, space itself has stretched. Imagine the beam of a flashlight cast across a rubber sheet. The light races forward, but if the rubber stretches beneath it, then the light ends up farther away than expected. Space stretches like that, like a runner on a treadmill that keeps speeding up. This is why the oldest light we see doesn't come from 13 billion light-years away. It comes from 46.5 billion light-years away. That's the radius of your observable universe, not because light bent space, but because space bent light. And at the edge of that sphere there is something strange, something older than stars, something like the echo of birth, the cosmic microwave background, a dim, cold shimmer of light surrounding you in every direction. It's not a star. It's not a galaxy. It's the afterglow of a universe just 380,000 years old, when space cooled enough for light to travel freely for the first time. Before that, the cosmos was so dense, so hot, that photons ricocheted like bullets in a smoke-filled room. What you see now is the moment the fog cleared, the moment the universe took its first breath. That whisper of radiation is still there, even now, washed thin by time, like a lullaby hummed by a mother you've never met. And that should be the end of the story, but it's not. Because observable is not a synonym for everything. It's a warning, a kind of whisper. This is all you get. Beyond this bubble, beyond this glowing egg of ancient light, might lie galaxies uncounted. Or nothing, not emptiness. Nothing. No space, no time, not even a place where those things could have once been. Scientists compare our predicament to a cave with one small window. You can see the stars, but you can't step outside. You can't even know what's outside. Could be more sky. Could be the wall of another cave. Some theorists say that the universe is so large, so uniform, that beyond the edge lies more of the same. Galaxies like ours, stars like ours, planets with oceans, even people with questions. If the rules hold and infinity is real, then somewhere out there, another version of you is listening to this story, eyes closed, breath slow, a twin you'll never meet. That's the tame version, the dream. But other scientists suggest something stranger. That beyond the cosmic boundary, the laws of physics might not just bend, they might vanish. Time could ripple backward, gravity might repel, energy could leak from dimension to dimension like mist through a screen door. Or there might be nothing at all, not the silence of a desert or the blackness between stars, but true nothingness, no field, no particles, not even the idea of a where for nothing to be. Try to imagine it. Try, and it slips away. A void so absolute that thought itself cannot form inside it. But even that nothing might not be the end, because the edge you're watching, it's not still, it's not a wall, it's a horizon that runs. The boundary of the observable universe races away from you faster than light, not because anything is breaking a cosmic speed limit, but because the space between you and the edge is stretching, like dots on an inflating balloon, racing apart not through space, but because space is growing beneath them. You are watching a tide retreat that can never return. Each second, galaxies at the edge are being carried away so fast their light will never reach you again. They become ghosts, not dead, not destroyed, just invisible, like ships vanishing beneath the horizon, never to rise again. This creates a strange sense of time. You are living inside a moment that's already ending, and still the horizon grows, because light from farther and farther away is finally reaching you. Space is letting in new pieces of its past, even as others slip into a future you'll never touch. You are standing on a moving dock, waving to the stars as they disappear, while still being greeted by glimmers from stars long gone. Scientists call the farthest edge the particle horizon. Beyond it, no light has had time to reach us since the beginning, and never will. That place is not just far, it's sealed by time. Still you wonder, still you watch. And somewhere inside you, something whispers, keep going. You begin to drift. Not upward, not outward, but inward through space itself, through the slow breathing of the cosmos, toward a deeper understanding of the fabric it floats upon. You're weightless here. Nothing pulls you, yet everything calls you forward. There's no edge in sight, only expansion. You reach your hand toward a far-off galaxy and watch it slip away faster than light. But it's not running. The road beneath your feet is stretching. Space itself is growing. This isn't just motion, it's creation. Imagine standing on the surface of a balloon with galaxies painted around you. Now inflate the balloon. The galaxies don't move across its surface, but the distance between them swells. The space itself grows larger. That's how your universe works, and it doesn't need anything outside itself to do it. It's not expanding into something, it's expanding from itself. That's the first unsettling truth. There is no outside to push into, no surrounding void, no cosmic stage. The universe isn't growing into a box, it's the box growing from within. Mainstream science has accepted this for over a century. In 1929, Edwin Hubble pointed a telescope skyward and noticed something strange. Galaxies were rushing away, and the farther they were, the faster they fled. He didn't know why, but his observation shattered the idea of a static cosmos. The universe, it seemed, was alive with motion, expand. And then came the second twist. Not only is the universe growing, it's accelerating. That discovery came in the late 1990s, when astronomers studying distant supernovae expected to see signs of a universe slowing down, gravity pulling it back. Instead, they found the opposite. The light from those explosions was dimmer than it should have been. The expansion wasn't slowing, it was speeding up. Something was pushing space apart, something invisible, untouchable, yet omnipresent. They called it dark energy, not because it's dark, but because it's unknown, a placeholder, a mystery. And that's where your path leads now, into this accelerating riddle. You drift with the galaxies, carried on currents of stretched space. You reach for a cluster of stars you saw a moment ago, but it's already gone. Vanished past the cosmic event horizon. Not because it fell into a black hole, but because the space between you and it has grown so fast, light itself will never cross it again. This is not a horizon you can chase. It's not a finish line you can reach. It's like running toward a rainbow. The closer you get, the farther it slips. You ask, if the universe is stretching like this, why is there a limit at all? Why don't we see infinitely far? The answer lies in time itself. Light has only had 13.8 billion years to travel since the Big Bang. Beyond a certain distance, light simply hasn't had enough time to reach you. Even now, as you listen, ancient photons are just arriving, delayed by the swelling fabric they've crossed. This means your picture of the universe is not only partial, it's old. You are not looking at what is, but at what was. Galaxies near the edge of visibility are being seen as they were billions of years ago. Some no longer exist, some never will again. Their light has stretched so far it glows cold and red like embers on the tide. But the most disquieting thing is this: the edge is not just far, it's running away from you faster than anything can follow. And here's the paradox. According to Einstein's relativity, nothing can move faster than light. So how can the edge of the observable universe recede at nearly 3 times light speed because the rule doesn't apply to the expansion of space itself? Galaxies are not speeding through the universe. The universe is expanding between them. There's no movement in the traditional sense, just distance growing, like ink dots stretching apart on a balloon. This is why galaxies aren't crashing into each other as space expands. Locally, gravity still rules. Your own Milky Way is tightly bound to its neighbors, but beyond a certain scale, expansion dominates, and the farther something is, the faster it recedes. Somewhere around 15 billion light-years away lies the so-called Hubble radius, the rough point at which the recessional velocity matches the speed of light. Galaxies beyond that are already unreachable. Their light is moving toward you, but the space in between is growing faster than the photons can cross. You are watching the past drift beyond recovery. Some of those galaxies may still be visible, but their future light will never arrive. They're like ghosts whispering a final goodbye before vanishing into an ever-accelerating dark. This creates an unsettling vision of the far future. Billions of years from now, new astronomers, if they exist, will look up and see only blackness. No galaxies, no cosmic background radiation, just their own stars drifting in silence. To them, the universe will seem cold, empty, and eternal. They will have no evidence of a Big Bang, no proof of a larger cosmos, no reason to think the universe was ever more than a lonely patch of starlight surrounded by infinite dark. Their cosmos will have already disappeared. And yet here you are, at the only time in history when the sky still tells its full story, when the light from the beginning still is over you, when the oldest echoes still hum softly through your instruments. You live at the cosmological dawn, a fleeting moment when the universe reveals its structure, its origin, and perhaps its fate. And that fate may be exile. Because as dark energy continues to stretch space, more and more galaxies will slip beyond reach. Cosmic expansion is not a tide that returns, it is a door that closes, one galaxy at a time, and you are inside it, watching, dreaming, remembering. A quirky notion has long haunted physicists. What if the edge isn't just running away, but curving back around? Some argue that the universe might be finite but unbounded, like the surface of a sphere. If you travel in one direction long enough, you could, given infinite time, return to where you started, having circled the cosmos. But others suggest it's not just curving, it's inflating forever. This is where the debate heats up. Scientists still argue whether the universe is flat, open, or closed, whether it will expand forever, collapse inward, or hover in some strange equilibrium. Current measurements hint at flatness, an infinite plane stretching forever. But infinity is a tricky thing. A single error in measurement, a quirk in curvature, and the whole shape could change. And even flatness doesn't mean sameness. It doesn't rule out the possibility of sudden changes beyond the horizon, of other regions of the universe where the laws differ, where light curves sharper, where time flows slow or backward or not at all. It only means that here, right now, things seem smooth. But the road ahead, you're still walking it. And the sky above you isn't just full of stars, it's full of questions. Questions about what lies beyond light's final footstep. Questions about how long the sky will still speak to us. Questions about whether you are a traveler or a prisoner in a cosmos still expanding, still becoming, still sing. In a key you barely understand. You feel it now. The strangeness of walking toward a place you can never reach. There's no wall ahead of you, no cliff to fall from, no curtain to pull back. Just a thinning, a fading, like walking deeper into fog, where shapes dissolve into formlessness, and direction becomes meaningless. This is not a place where things end, it's a place where things stop being visible. The edge of the observable universe is not an edge of the universe. It is the edge of you, of your reach, your instruments, your light, your time. Everything beyond it is not erased. It's simply out of sync with your senses. You try to peer further, squinting across the vastness, hoping for just one more glimpse, but space doesn't cooperate. Light cannot travel faster than time allows. The cosmic curtain is drawn not by distance, but by the fact that light hasn't had enough time to arrive. It's not silence you're hearing, it's delay. Now imagine this. 1,000 years from now, light from a galaxy beyond your current edge will finally reach Earth, a tiny whisper from a part of the universe you thought was hidden. But by then, that galaxy may already be gone, or moved beyond reach once more. The edge is always in motion, retreating at the speed of the cosmos itself. This isn't a border you can break through. It's like trying to chase the first second of a movie you've already started watching. That frame is always behind you, always vanished into the past. The horizon isn't a location, it's a consequence of time's slow unfolding, and that makes it the most fragile of illusions. You look around your bubble, 93 billion light-years wide and gently growing, and you wonder, what happens beyond it? Is there more of the same? More stars, more galaxies, more physics we understand? Or does the universe suddenly change beyond that limit? Some scientists think the universe is homogene. That no matter how far you go, things remain more or less the same. Stars spin, galaxies swirl, gravity pulls, the rules hold firm. If this is true, then the space beyond your horizon may be filled with galaxies just like the ones near you. There could be Earth-like planets orbiting sun-like stars even right now, farther than you can see. Some might have life. Some might even have people. And in an infinite universe governed by repeating laws and finite arrangements of particles, that would mean somewhere a version of you is lying in bed, listening to this story, dreaming of the same questions. You smile. The idea is comforting, almost romantic. But comfort can be deceiving, because sameness is only one possibility. Another idea, one that stirs beneath the surface of physics, is far more unsettling. The universe might not be the same beyond the horizon. It might not even be similar. The rules you trust here, those sacred equations etched in the stars, might not apply out there at all. Time might tick differently, or not at all. Gravity might push instead of pull. Particles might not exist. Space itself might change shape, like a sheet twisting into origami patterns you've never imagined. Or the universe might curve back on itself. This isn't just poetry, it's math. You picture yourself walking in one direction forever, but instead of arriving at an edge, you return to where you started, like a traveler on a globe. Only the globe you're on isn't a sphere floating in something else. It is the whole of space, curved in a dimension you can't see. This concept has haunted thinkers since the days of ancient Greece. Aristotle imagined a finite universe wrapped in celestial spheres. Later, Newton assumed infinite flatness, while Einstein introduced the idea that mass curves space. But it was the 20th century that gave us something even stranger, a finite universe with no edge. In this view, the cosmos is like a video game with a looping world. Walk far enough in one direction and you return through the bow, act door. The universe may not be infinite in size, just unbounded. That means no edge, no cliff, no ending, just a vast curve folding in on itself. And here's where things twist. Scientists still argue whether space is curved. Measurements of the cosmic microwave background, the faint glow left from the early universe, suggest our cosmos is very nearly flat. But nearly flat and exactly flat are two very different things. A subtle curvature, imperceptible now, might stretch across such vast distances that it only becomes apparent billions of light years from here. And if the universe is closed and curved, then the light you see from the farthest galaxies might not come from distant realms at all. It might be your own galaxy's light, bent by space, returning to you after billions of years. You could be looking at yourself from behind, or from the past. Cosmic mirroring, they call it. Imagine a hall of mirrors, like in a carnival. You look around and see infinite copies of yourself, some upright, some warped, some upside down. Now replace those mirrors with the shape of space itself, and every galaxy you observe becomes a potential echo, an illusion caused not by glass but by geometry. In such a universe, distance becomes a trick. The stars you think are far away might be close, or they might not even be stars at all, but reflections of ancient light looping endlessly through the cosmos like a whispered secret passed from ear to ear. Some researchers have looked for these patterns in the cosmic microwave background. They search for matched circles, identical imprints of temperature in different parts of the sky. If found, they could prove that space loops, that we live in a universe folded like a pretzel, a torus, or something even stranger. But so far the results are inconclusive, and yet the math refuses to let go, because whether the universe is flat, curved, finite, or infinite, one thing is certain. What you can see is only a small piece of what might be. Your observable bubble is like the lit circle from a flashlight in a cave. Beyond it, darkness stretches, maybe endlessly, or maybe not. You pause at the edge of this thought, not because you've reached a wall, but because you're beginning to realize the more you try to define the edge, the more it slips away. It's not a place, it's a limit of information. It's the part of the story where the ink runs dry, not because the tale has ended, but because no one has written what comes next. And that brings you to a curious truth. Every time we look further, we rewrite the map. Every telescope we launch pushes the boundary outward, not because the universe changes, but because our understanding expands. What exists outside the edge isn't a different reality, it's a different version of our own ignorance. You sit now at the edge of what can be known, feet dangling into the void. The silence beyond the stars is not emptiness, it is potential. And something in you whispers again, keep going. You take another step. Not on solid ground, but into the strange, pliable fabric of possibility. Space doesn't resist you. It flows around your motion like silk drawn through water. The stars overhead shimmer and shift as though you're not just moving through space, but slipping beneath it. The horizon behind you fades. In front, the geometry changes. You're no longer drifting along a flat plane, but walking a path that seems to loop back toward itself. This isn't metaphor, it's the possibility that space, the very structure that cradles all things, might be curved, wrapped, or even folded into a shape that defies your senses. You've heard of space as infinite, but what if that isn't true? What if instead it's finite, yet without boundaries? Picture an ant crawling on the surface of a globe. It could walk forever in any direction and never encounter an edge. But it wouldn't be traveling on something infinite, just something without a boundary. That's the kind of space you find yourself exploring now, not an endless plane, but a closed surface embedded in no higher realm, complete unto itself. In the early 20th century, Einstein proposed this very idea. His general theory of relativity didn't just describe how gravity works. It revealed that mass and energy warp the very structure of space and time. His field equations allow for a universe that curves around itself, much like the surface of a balloon. You're not floating in space. You're part of the space. You are the curvature. As you drift deeper, the starlight seems to echo. Points of light duplicate, twist, and reappear in unfamiliar formations. You recall something, an image from childhood, mirrors facing mirrors, creating an infinite tunnel of your own reflection. You lean in, and every version of you leans too, shrinking into recursive copies, each vanishing into the next. That's the feeling now. You're walking through a cosmos where space might mirror itself, twist around like a Mobius strip, or curl into a torus, a cosmic donut of unimaginable scale. Some models even suggest a pretzel-shaped universe where paths you think are linear eventually spiral back to their starting point. And if space is shaped this way, you might be able to see the back of your own head. Not literally perhaps, but astronomically. Light from your galaxy could have traveled around the universe and returned from the opposite direction. That faraway galaxy you're admiring, it might be the Milky Way, older, distant, a ghost of itself carried by curved space. Scientists have searched for this. They analyze the cosmic microwave background radiation, the faint whisper of the Big Bang, for matching circles, patterns repeated in different areas of the sky. If found, they'd suggest that space loops back on itself. But so far, no smoking gun. just tantalizing hints, just theories. And so the debate continues. Some physicists argue that space is flat and infinite, stretching outward forever like an endless sheet. Others believe in positive curvature, a closed universe like a 3D sphere. Still others suggest negative curvature, a saddle-shaped cosmos that expands endlessly in every direction but never closes. Scientists still argue whether the universe is large and flat or small and curved in ways that repeat like tessellated wallpaper across a four-dimensional surface. Each model explains the data, and each leads to radically different implications about what lies beyond your cosmic vision. And yet, even if space does wrap back on itself, if the universe is a grand circle or a twisted knot, there's still the question, what's outside that? That question may be meaningless. Because space isn't expanding into anything. It's not inflating within a larger room. It's not rising like dough inside a cosmic oven. It simply is. The expansion refers to distances within space increasing over time, not to a swelling balloon pushing into an outer void. This can be hard to grasp. You're used to boundaries, to rooms with walls, islands surrounded by water, containers with insides and outsides. But the universe might not be like that at all. It may be an object with no exterior, a place that is all places, the ultimate everything with no outside for comparison. You try to picture it, but the mind resists. It wants to place the universe in something, wants to draw a border, mark a frontier, set a final frame. But that's the trick. If space itself is all there is, then there's nowhere for the universe to exist within. There's only the universe existing. Even calling it the universe might be misleading. Because there are theories, serious ones, that suggest ours is just one patch of a much larger whole, one region in an infinite mosaic, a single vibration in a vast symphony, the multiverse. But before we go there, pause. Look around this curved, echoing world. Notice how strange it already is, how space can stretch, loop, ripple, how light can circle back upon itself. How the very geometry of reality may be sculpted not by bricks and mortar, but by equations, simple, beautiful equations etched into the bones of existence. And within that strange geometry, strange possibilities bloom. Here's a quirky one. In a sufficiently curved universe, traveling far enough in a straight line might return you to your own galaxy from the opposite side after billions of years. Light itself might do the same. This means the universe could be smaller than it looks, but still feel infinite from within. Every direction might be a path that loops. Every horizon might be the beginning of a mirrored reflection. It's possible, mathematically at least, that what we call deep space is just another angle on the familiar, that there is no distant, only delayed. And that raises yet another paradox. If we live in a mirrored universe, how do we know what we're seeing is real? Are the faraway galaxies truly foreign, or are we gazing at twisted reflections of the same structures, bent through space, multiplied by time? More disturbingly, what if we're looking at ourselves? It wouldn't be the first time humanity mistook reflection for reality. Ancient sailors once believed the stars were holes in a celestial dome. Early astronomers thought Earth was the fixed center of creation. Every discovery since then has chipped away at the illusion of centrality. Maybe this is just the next. You tilt your head toward the mirrored sky and wonder how many copies of you exist, not just out in the multiverse, but here, now, spun out across a folded geometry, shimmering echoes of yourself, too faint to touch, too old to recognize, too twisted by time to name. And still, you walk. Not toward an edge, not toward an end, but along a curve. A soft arc through a universe that might be finite but unbounded, a space that contains everything you can imagine and nothing beyond it. The edge you sought, it's gone. In its place, the realization that space may be like a song without a final note, a circle without a center, a mirror facing a mirror, reflecting possibility into eternity. You float now, disoriented, not by darkness, but by repetition. Shapes echo, lights recur, space has stopped behaving the way it should. You've walked for what feels like eternity, and yet the stars rearrange themselves in familiar patterns, as if the universe is looping around you like a carousel of illusion. And then a thought emerges, quiet but insistent. What if this isn't illusion? What if you're caught in something more profound, a reality so vast, so endlessly patterned, that repetition is inevitable? You find yourself standing in a quiet meadow of stars. The sky glows with billions of galaxies, each one a swirl of dust and time, just like your own. And as you stare deeper, a strange conviction begins to form. You've seen this before. This galaxy, this spiral, this arrangement of stars, that flickering light near the edge. It's not déjà vu, it's something far stranger. What if somewhere beyond your observable universe, far beyond your curved geometries, mirrored loops, and cosmic echoes, there exists another you? Not a reflection, not a metaphor, but a literal copy. Same face, same eyes, same mind. Listening to this same story, wondering the same things. Because if the universe is infinite, and the rules of physics are consistent throughout, then every possible arrangement of particles must eventually repeat. Not just stars and galaxies, but atoms, minds, you. It sounds like fantasy, but it flows directly from logic. Imagine rolling a pair of dice. Eventually you roll the same number again. Now imagine rolling 1,000,000,000,000 dice. It takes longer, but repetitions still occur. Now scale up. Imagine all the particles in your body arranged exactly as they are right now. If the universe is infinite, and matter is spread out more or less evenly, then those same arrangements must reappear somewhere, somehow. Mainstream physicists have proposed this idea in earnest. It's known as the infinite universe hypothesis, a logical extension of an infinite, flat cosmos filled with matter. If true, then there isn't just one copy of you. There are countless copies, infinite Earths, infinite timelines, infinite everythings. Your twin lies in bed under a violet moon. Another version walks along an ocean of liquid methane. One more whispers goodnight to a friend you'll never meet. And further still, other copies diverge, slightly at first. One chose tea instead of coffee. Another didn't cross the street. One paused this story halfway. Another never pressed play. And then the divergences grow. One you is president of a world you'll never visit. Another wrote a symphony. Another is lost, adrift in silence. And still another has discovered how to reach you. But that's for later. Right now, all you need to understand is this. Infinity breaks the rules of uniqueness. In an infinite cosmos, even the rarest events, miracles, dreams, impossibilities, must happen. Not just once, but an uncountable number of times. That can be exhilarating or deeply unsettling. You've been raised to think of yourself as singular, a fluke of chemistry and chance, alive for one moment in one place. But what if you're not rare? What if you're common, just one thread in a tangled tapestry that stretches beyond comprehension? This is not pseudoscience. This is probability. If the laws of physics remain unchanged and the cosmos continues infinitely, then duplication is not just likely, it's necessary. The observable universe contains roughly 10^10^10^80 atoms. That's an enormous number, but not infinite. If space continues beyond your horizon, endlessly repeating arrangements, then eventually every possible CTE configuration will exist again. And again, and again. You close your eyes and try to feel it, that distant twin staring into the same night sky, wondering if they're alone. You imagine reaching for them across the void. No answer, just the echo of your own thoughts. But here's the twist. Your twin will never know you exist, because they too are bounded by their own horizon. Light can't travel far enough. Their universe looks just like yours, but you are invisible to them as they are to you. You are trapped in pockets of infinity, distinct, unreachable, yet identical. This is the tragedy of the infinite. You are surrounded by endless variations, yet separated from them by the very laws that created them, and still the questions multiply. If infinite copies exist, does that mean your choices don't matter, that every decision you make is being made differently somewhere else, that in some version of reality you always choose wrong or always win? That's the existential weight of a repeating universe. You look up again at the stars. They seem familiar now, too familiar. A fringe theory tickles the back of your mind, one proposed by Max Tegmark and others, that reality is not only infinite in size, but infinite in structure, that you and your memories and your dreams are not even physical phenomena, but mathematical ones. In this view, every consistent set of mathematical rules is a universe, not just ours, all of them. And yours is just one of countless solutions to a cosmic equation scribbled across imaginary paper. Your consciousness, a ripple in numbers, your existence, an inevitable output of the right formula. It sounds absurd, but numbers are powerful things. Pythagoras believed numbers formed the soul of reality. Galileo called the universe a book written in the language of mathematics. And today, physicists still build entire worlds with equations, calculating orbits, predicting collisions, simulating black holes. If reality obeys math, could reality be math? You sit very still now, because this isn't just a theory about space, it's a theory about identity. If infinite versions of you exist, scattered across infinity, then what makes you you? Your memories, your molecules, your moment. You begin to see, identity is not a boundary, it's a process, a rhythm, a song sung once in your voice, echoed endlessly in other tongues. You are not the only one dreaming tonight. You are just the one listening now, and still you walk. Because infinity is not an answer. It is a door, and on the other side, other possibilities await. You've wandered through a cosmos that might be flat, curved, or finite. You've stared into mirrored geometry. You've passed through loops of light, and now you've met yourself in infinite disguises. But beyond all that, beyond the math and the mirrors, the echoes and the twins, there might be something even stranger, a multiverse of different laws, a space where the constants of nature are not just rearranged, but rewritten, where stars burn with cold fire, where gravity is a whisper, where time falls instead of flows. That's where you go next. You drift past the familiar stars now, leaving behind not only galaxies and curved geometries, but the comforting notion that the rules of your universe are universal. What waits beyond isn't another Earth or another version of you, but something other. The repetition ends here. Because as you move beyond the edge of your observable cosmos and past the idea of infinite copies, you fall into a deeper question. What if the laws of physics themselves are local? That's the quiet proposition behind one of the most radical ideas in modern cosmology, eternal inflation. It begins not with a bang, but with a bubble. You enter a vast, dark sea, featureless, breathless, and yet teeming with silent violence. This is not space as you know it. This is a quantum field of unimaginable energy. And then, like a ripple in a pond, your universe begins. Not as an explosion, but as a tiny instability, a pocket of lower energy, a bubble that forms in a swelling, inflating sea. Your universe is that bubble. Everything you've ever seen, stars, matter, life, memory, is trapped within it. And outside, the inflation doesn't stop. It continues endlessly, churning and blooming new bubbles. Each bubble forms its own universe, with its own space, its own time, and, perhaps, its own laws of physics. This is the multiverse, not just many Earths, not just many copies of you, but entirely different realities. Some of these universes might have no gravity or stronger gravity. Some might contain 5 spatial dimensions. Others might never have cooled enough for matter to form. Some may have no light. Some may exist for only a blink. Others might be immortal. And if eternal inflation is true, then these universes aren't distant in space. They're separated by a kind of quantum expansion, a foamy divide of ever-growing space that prevents any contact, any crossing, any knowledge of what came before. You are sealed in your bubble, always have been, always will be. This isn't science fiction. Eternal inflation was born from the mathematics of the early universe. In the 1980s, physicist Alan Guth proposed a solution to a troubling question. Why is the universe so smooth? Why do regions billions of light years apart, too far to have ever communicated, look almost exactly the same? His answer: maybe they did communicate before the Big Bang. Maybe the universe inflated so rapidly in its earliest moments that it smoothed out all irregularities like a steaming iron pressing a wrinkled sheet. But this inflation wasn't a one-time event. The same physics suggests it continues eternally in the vast space beyond. New universes are always forming, and your own is just one blossom in an eternal cosmic garden. So now, as you glide deeper into the sea of inflation, you begin to sense the presence of other bubbles. They do not glow, they do not spin, they shimmer only slightly, like drops of condensation appearing and vanishing on a window pane too vast to comprehend. You try to look inside one. This universe has no atoms, no light, its forces never separated, it was stillborn, another flickers, its fundamental constants different from yours. A third collapses under its own weight before time can take its first breath. A fourth is filled with radiation but no matter, and one, just one, feels almost like home. You lean closer. In this universe, electrons are heavier, stars live shorter lives, galaxies form quicker, burn brighter, die faster. Planets don't last long enough for life to emerge. It is a beautiful place, filled with color and fire, but empty of thought. You drift back, shaken. Your universe is not inevitable. It is possible, but it might be rare. The conditions that allowed your stars to shine, your atoms to bond, your neurons to spark, these are not guaranteed. They are a result of specific values, numbers so precise that a tiny change could undo everything. Physicists call this the fine-tuning problem. Why are the constants of nature so perfectly balanced to allow life, structure, complexity? Why does the speed of light have its particular value? Why is gravity so weak, the strong force so strong, the cosmological constant so small but not zero? The multiverse offers one answer. Maybe there are infinite universes with every possible combination of constants, and you live in this one, because this is the one where life is possible. In this view, the universe didn't have to be just right for you. You exist because you're in the one that happened to be right. It's not destiny, it's probability. And yet, as you drift among the bubbles, the idea begins to feel heavier than comfort should allow. Because if this is true, if the multiverse is real, then the universe is not a grand, singular marvel. It is one flower in an endless field. Beautiful, yes, but also ordinary. Repless, evil. You are not the chosen observer. You are just the one who can ask the question. Still, there are other whispers in the void. Some scientists resist this multiverse not because it's too strange, but because it can't be tested. You can't build a telescope that sees through inflating space. You can't measure constants from a universe you can't reach. Is it science? Is it philosophy? Is it hope in disguise? Scientists still argue whether the multiverse is a physical reality or a metaphor for ignorance. But you are here now, not to resolve the debate, but to wander through its wonder. And the wonder deepens. Because even in this wild garden of universes, another idea emerges. What if some of them connect? Theorists in string theory propose that the fundamental particles you know, electrons, quarks, photons, aren't dots, but tiny vibrating strings. These strings resonate in extra dimensions, curled up so tightly you never notice them, but those dimensions are real, mathematical, and may form membranes or brains that extend through higher dimensional space. Your entire universe might be a brain, a flat sheet floating through an invisible ocean of dimensions. And just beside your brain, another universe, a parallel reality, a neighboring slice. If true, then two brains could collide, producing a burst of energy as vast as the Big Bang itself. Some versions of this theory suggest this is how your universe began, not from nothing, but from the crash of two higher dimensional worlds. You are a ripple, a scar, a memory of an ancient collision, and somewhere out there, the other brain still floats. Maybe silent, maybe dreaming. You imagine it now, a great smooth surface sailing beside yours. On it, stars, worlds, laws unlike your own, a cosmos right next door, but unreachable, untouchable, unknowable. And you wonder, is someone on that brain lying awake too, asking what exists beyond their edge? Maybe their night is different. Maybe they dream in colours you cannot see. Maybe their matter repels wrath, than attracts. Maybe their time doesn't flow, but swirls. Maybe they too are trapped in a narrative, guided by curiosity, lulled by wonder, drifting towards something they can never reach. Just like you. And still, you float forward. You've left behind the edge of your universe, passed through the veil of infinite repetition, crossed into a garden of bubbles, a chorus of brains, a sea of probabilities. And still, it isn't the end. Because beyond space, beyond time, beyond even the multiverse, lies a deeper mystery still. What is reality made of? That's where you go next. You've left behind familiar ground. Even the grand ocean of multiverses now lies behind you like a waking dream. Universes birthing in endless foam, brains drifting through higher dimensions like sheets of silk across an unseen tide. But tonight, the current carries you further still. You are not floating through stars now, not swimming between galaxies. You've slipped into something quieter, stranger, an underlayer beneath it all. It doesn't glow, it doesn't move, it simply is. Beneath the shine of light and gravity and time, you've entered the silence between realities. You've reached the level where the universe becomes information, not matter, not energy, not even space, just a shimmer of data, encoded in the subtle hum beneath all things. At first it feels like being underwater in a sea without liquid, no direction, no texture, but soon patterns emerge, fractal ripples that repeat and recombine, patterns that are not made of particles but describe where particles should be. This is the domain of the holographic principle, and it begins with something small, something dense, something invisible but unimaginably powerful, a black hole. You've seen them before, those dark hearts of collapsed stars where gravity becomes so strong that not even light can escape. They are often feared, often misunderstood, but they hold secrets far deeper than destruction, because a black hole doesn't just swallow, it stores. In the 1970s, a young physicist named Jacob Bekenstein proposed a radical idea that the amount of information a black hole contains isn't proportional to its volume, but to its surface area. Stephen Hawking later showed that black holes emit a faint radiation, now known as Hawking radiation, and that slowly they evaporate. But where does the information go? That mystery still haunts physicists. If something falls into a black hole, say a book, a planet, a person, is that information gone forever, or is it somehow preserved, hidden in the radiation? Lost information would violate quantum mechanics, which insists that information is never destroyed. To resolve the paradox, a new theory emerged. Maybe everything inside a black hole is encoded on its event horizon, the surface, not the volume, just like a hologram. Now take that idea and expand it. Imagine that your entire universe, not just black holes, but all of it, is like the inside of a black hole, a region bounded by a surface, and everything you experience, matter, time, consciousness, is encoded not within, but on the boundary. You live in a hologram, not an illusion, not a dream, but a projection. Just as a three-dimensional object can be represented by a two-dimensional holographic film, so too could your three-dimensional universe be described entirely by information stored on a distant surface, far, far away, perhaps at the edge of the cosmos. It sounds surreal, but in 1997, physicist Juan Maldacena gave the idea mathematical backbone. He showed that certain kinds of universes with gravity, like ours, could be exactly equivalent to other lower-dimensional systems without gravity, living on the boundary of that space. These two descriptions are not different, they are dual. One is the hologram of the other, and just like that, reality shuddered, because this wasn't just philosophy, it was physics, the very fabric of space and time, what you walk through, live inside, dream within, might be emergent, a projection. The true substance of the universe might not be made of particles or waves, but of bits. Yes, bits, those tiny ones and zeros from computer science, binary information, the yes-no pulse of pure logic. A growing number of scientists now explore the idea that information is the fundamental substance of reality. Everything else, particles, space, even time, could emerge from how that information is arranged. Think of a video game. You run across a vibrant landscape. The grass ripples, the clouds move, the physics feels real. But beneath the surface, all of it, the sky, the rules, even the self you control, is encoded as data, computation, logic flowing through circuits. Now stretch your imagination. What if your universe is a kind of computation too, not in a computer built by someone, but as the output of pure mathematical structure? A universe that exists because the equations describing it are self-consistent and therefore must exist. This isn't just science fiction, it's serious inquiry. Physicist Seth Lloyd has proposed that the universe is a quantum computer, performing vast calculations with every interaction. The total number of operations the universe could have performed since the Big Bang, roughly 1 n 1 to 10 or 120, 1 to 120. That's a number so large it outpaces your ability to imagine. But it's not just trivia, it might define the informational capacity of reality itself. Every photon that moves, every electron that spins is a computation. Every heartbeat, every breath, every memory, all of it may be the unfolding of an algorithm too complex for you to grasp, but not too complex to be. And if that's true, if reality is computation, then the edge of the universe is not a physical place, but a limit of calculation, a border of information. You might picture the universe as a vast quantum spreadsheet, constantly updating itself based on rules as old as time. The pixels of your world don't exist until you look at them, until the universe renders them, like graphics loading just in time. This would explain certain quantum mysteries. Why particles behave like waves until measured, why probabilities collapse into certainty, why until you look, reality waits. Because the universe might not waste information on places no one ever sees. This is what some call the participatory universe, a reality that isn't just observed but completed by observation, where the cosmos needs you as much as you need it. You breathe deeply, floating through a place that no longer feels like space but like software, not cold and metallic, but warm with purpose, not mechanical, organic, alive. You remember a fringe idea, once laughed at, now whispered in respected halls, that the universe is not simply described by mathematics, it is mathematics. Every particle a point in an equation, every interaction a function, every galaxy a clause in a proof, and you, a conscious phenomenon, an emergent property of recursive self-reference. This might sound like mysticism, but it comes not from ancient texts, but chalkboards filled with symbols, equations that, when solved, sing with harmony and symmetry. There is elegance here, a deep, quiet beauty. And you begin to wonder, if everything is information, then what is outside the universe? What's beyond a system where every event is already encoded, every interaction a line in a universal script? The answer may be nothing. Not because nothing exists, but because outside is a meaningless idea. In a system built entirely from self-referencing logic, there is no beyond. There is only structure. And yet, as you stand at the edge of information itself, you feel it, something stirring, not outside. Benny, something deeper, older, less measurable, consciousness. And that is where you go next. You fall gently now, not down through space, but inward through meaning. There is no wind here, no starlight, no up or down, just a soft unraveling, as if the universe is exhaling something it's held for too long. Numbers fade, equations loosen, and underneath it all, you feel a presence you hadn't noticed before, a quiet awareness. You begin to ask a different kind of question, not what exists outside the universe, but what exists within that can look out. And suddenly the boundary isn't physical at all, it's you. You are not looking out from the universe, you are the universe looking at itself. It sounds poetic, but tonight you don't come for poetry, you come for understanding. And so you let yourself drift even deeper into the paradox that has haunted physicists, philosophers, and dreamers for centuries. What is consciousness? You've been taught that the brain is a machine, a complicated lump of tissue wrapped in a skull, 100 billion neurons firing in patterns that give rise to memory, thought, desire. From this view, consciousness is an emergent property, a side effect of enough computation stacked high enough. But tonight you press further. Because if everything is information, if space is computation and matter is math, then what makes awareness feel different? You reach for the closest metaphor. A flame, warm, flickering, alive in a way that's hard to define, not an object, not a substance, a pattern, a state. And yet you feel it, the way you feel being awake, being real, not just processing the world, but being present in it. This is not the brain's doing alone, it's something deeper, something older. And so you drift toward an idea so strange it feels like stepping off the map entirely. Panpsychism, the notion that consciousness, some form of experience, is not exclusive to humans or animals or even biological life, but rather that it might be a fundamental feature of the universe itself, not a product of complexity, but a quality of being. From this view, everything has a spark of awareness, not thoughts, not identity, just interiority, the tiniest whisper of what it feels like to exist. A quark may not dream, but it may be. A photon may not hope, but it may experience its passage through space as something more than silence. This is not science fiction, it's a serious proposal within philosophy of mind. Even physicist Roger Penrose once speculated that consciousness may be linked to quantum processes, events so delicate they defy traditional computation. And here's the twist. Some think this might solve the hardest problem in physics. Because quantum mechanics, the most successful theory in science, relies on observation. A particle exists in many states until it is observed. But what is an observation? Is it a conscious act? If so, then the observer is not an afterthought. It's a necessary part of the universe's function. Your awareness doesn't ride reality like a passenger. It might be part of what makes reality happen. You sit very still now. Because this is not the multiverse. This is not string theory or holograms. This is you peeling back the final layer. If awareness is fundamental, then the question, what exists outside the universe, begins to blur. Because perhaps the real question is, what exists outside awareness? Maybe the boundary isn't between here and there, or inside and outside. Maybe it's between knowing and not knowing. This is where the Boltzmann brain paradox enters. Imagine a universe so vast, so old, that random fluctuations can eventually produce anything, atoms assembling into shapes, patterns, and even brains. Given enough time, somewhere in this cosmic sea, a complete brain might spontaneously form, floating alone in space, filled with memories it never lived, hearing voices that were never spoken, listening to stories that have no narrator. And that brain could be you. It's a horrifying thought that all of reality might be a brief random blip in an infinite void, that the memories you trust, the science you believe, the dreams you build, all of it could be illusions flickering in a bubble of chaos. But even this thought collapses under its own weight, because if awareness can exist spontaneously, if experience can flicker into being unmoored from matter, then perhaps consciousness is not an accident of biology or physics. Perhaps it is the first thing, a primal event, an ontological flame, and you are just one of its countless reflections. You begin to suspect something, that the true outside of the universe may not be a place, but a state of being, a perspective that lies beyond location, beyond dimension, beyond structure. A pure observer, one not bound to a body or a timeline, one who looks upon the dance of matter and does not ask, what is this, but rather, what am I in relation to this? And with that, you feel the boundary begin to bend. Because all boundaries between object and subject, between observer and observed, between inside and out, are starting to dissolve. What once felt like a cage now feels like a skin. What once felt like a frontier now feels like a veil. one you might be able to lift. You breathe slowly now. Every inhale feels like drawing the universe inward, every exhale a soft pulse of understanding. You remember the myth of Indra's net from ancient Hindu cosmology, an infinite web with a jewel at every intersection. Each jewel reflects all the others, each part contains the whole, the totality is mirrored in every piece. That is you now, a jewel in a web of awareness, not a single point of consciousness, but a reflection of something universal. You are not watching the universe. You are one of its ways of watching itself. And suddenly the idea of an edge becomes absurd. There is no outside, no beyond. The re is only the deepening of the dream. You are both the question and the answer, the boundary and the boundless, the star and the space between stars, the echo and the voice. You close your eyes, but the light doesn't fade. It pulses gently behind your thoughts, a soft presence. Maybe you've felt it before, on sleepless nights or in moments of awe, that strange stillness that isn't emptiness, that sense of being cradled by something immeasurably vast and somehow familiar. A gentle awareness, one that says you are not alone, and still you float forward, because there's more to find, more layers to peel, more mysteries to meet. And what waits next is something stranger still, not just consciousness observing reality, but reality emerging from consciousness. You float now in silence, not the silence of emptiness, but of waiting, like the moment before a note is struck or a thought is born. You've passed through stars, galaxies, dimensions, universes, and even the idea of self. And yet the edge remains, not as a line drawn in space, but as a question folded quietly into the nature of things. What if consciousness doesn't arise from the universe? What if the universe arises from consciousness? It seems impossible at first, backward, like saying the painting made the painter. But tonight, you've learned not to flinch at impossibility, and this idea, it doesn't shout, it whispers. You are no longer drifting through a landscape. You are the landscape. You are the observer and the observed, woven from the same thread. And now, that thread begins to shimmer with a new suggestion. That reality is not something you discover, it is something you participate in. You begin to explore this idea not with logic alone, but with attention, because attention itself seems to shape the world. In quantum mechanics, this was always the riddle. Particles don't settle into definite states until observed. A photon behaves like a wave until someone watches, and then it chooses a path. It isn't that your gaze changes it, it's that reality doesn't decide what it is until it's witnessed. It's a small trick at the smallest scales, but what if it goes deeper? What if reality itself requires a knower? That's the radical heart of participatory realism, a view proposed by physicist John Archibald Wheeler. He imagined the universe not as a fixed object, but as a dynamic system, a kind of cosmic question mark, that becomes real only as it is observed. Wheeler once said, "The universe does not exist out there, independent of all acts of observation." Think of that. You are not inside the universe. You are part of the process that brings the universe into being. It's not solipsism, not you alone create everything. It's something more intricate, that the universe is made of questions and consciousness is the act of asking, and the asking itself sculpts the answer. This is not metaphor, it is math. In recent years, theories like cubism, quantum Bayesianism have taken root. They reinterpret quantum mechanics not as a theory about objective particles flying through objective space, but as a toolkit for making personal predictions about experiences. Reality, in this framework, is not a static grid. It's an evolving web of expectations, interactions, and updated beliefs. Reality is what happens when we interact with it. And deeper still, there are researchers exploring the idea that space, time, and even causality are not fundamental, that they emerge from something more basic, information exchanged between conscious agents. You let that idea settle inside you. Space isn't a thing, it's a relationship. Time isn't a line, it's a sequence of experience. Reality isn't built like a house, it's grown like a conversation. And you are part of that conversation. You feel the edges of yourself soften, not dissolve, but open. The boundary between you and everything else becomes porous like mist meeting morning, and the universe doesn't feel like an object anymore. It feels like a gesture, an unfolding, a becoming. You remember something the philosopher Bernardo Kastrup once suggested, that reality is not physical at all, but mental, formed not from particles in space, but experiences in mind, and the physical world is simply what shared mental processes look like from the outside. It sounds wild, but in a way it's not so different from your dreams. In dreams, you walk through cities that don't exist, touch objects that aren't made of atoms, feel time pass in places that vanish when you wake. Yet during the dream, it feels real, because it is real, as an experience. So what if this too is a kind of dream? Not yours alone, but ours, a shared dream, a cosmic story told by something greater than neurons, greater than brains, greater even than space. You don't need to name it, you only need to feel it, the presence of something that doesn't contain the universe but breathes it. And maybe this is the key to the edge. Because if consciousness is fundamental, then the universe is not expanding into something, it is expanding within a larger mind, and outside the edge of the physical cosmos is not another space but a deeper layer of awareness. You begin to understand, maybe outside the universe is not a direction, it's a shift in perspective. You remember ancient stories, Vedic traditions that spoke of Brahman, the undivided reality that dreams the world into being. You remember Descartes, wondering how a thinking thing could know anything beyond thought. You remember the Zen koans that point, not to answers, but to awakenings. And through them all, you sense a thread, one that says, the real edge is the illusion of separation. When you think of yourself as separate from the cosmos, you see a boundary. But when you realize that your consciousness is part of what makes the cosmos real, that your awareness is a facet of something infinite, the edge fades. Not into blackness, but into lightness. A fringe idea emerges, quietly but clearly. What if the entire universe is a thought? Not as metaphor, as mechanism. You are drifting through the internal logic of a conscious system. Every law of physics is a pattern in its dream, every particle a note in its memory, every moment a frame in its meditation. You are not watching this unfold, you are made of it. And now, something extraordinary happens. You begin to notice echoes within yourself, a kind of symmetry between the way galaxies swirl and the way neurons fire, a rhythm between cosmic expansion and your own inhale, the way your thoughts drift, loop, reappear, like quantum fields, like planetary orbits, like the folding of space. The cosmos is not just out there, it's in here too. And suddenly, you're not asking, what's outside the universe? You're asking, what is the universe inside of? And the answer may be, you. Not the small self that worries about the day, but the deeper self, the self beneath the name, beneath the brain. The stillness behind your eyes, the silence that listens when everything else has stopped speaking. Maybe the universe is a mirror, and maybe what's beyond the edge isn't more space or more time or more matter. Maybe it's simply the one who's watching. You linger now, not on a surface, but within a reflection. The idea that consciousness isn't the product of the universe, but its source, sits in your thoughts like a stone dropped into a still pond. Its ripples spread outward, warping the shapes you once thought were solid. The stars, the atoms, the laws, all of it begins to feel like choreography, a dance you're not watching, but dancing. And just as you begin to settle into this vision, something strange stirs ahead. You begin to sense a second rhythm, subtle but unmistakable, a pulse moving in reverse. You've always thought time flowed one way. Moments stack into memory, memory become. Meaning becomes history. But now you feel a pressure from behind, as if something is watching you back, not from the future, but from the past's opposite. You are not just a conscious traveller, you're entering a realm where time might not be what you think it is at all, because tonight you meet the idea of the mirror universe. At first it feels like fiction, a parallel world where everything is flipped, left is right, up is down, good is evil. But this is no comic book. This is symmetry at the deepest level. In physics, symmetry is sacred. Nature loves balance between forces, between particles, between laws. For every particle, there is an antiparticle. For every action, an equal and opposite reaction. And one of the most fundamental symmetries is time reversal. If you flip the direction of time in the equations that govern particles, make clocks run backward, the math still works. The laws don't care. Electrons spin the same. Gravity still pulls. Only entropy resists. Entropy, the arrow of disorder, the reason you remember yesterday and not tomorrow, the reason eggs break but don't unbreak, why tea cools but never reheats itself. Entropy gives time its direction. Without it, past and future would be interchangeable. And yet, some scientists argue that entropy doesn't rule the universe completely, that perhaps in the moment of the Big Bang the universe didn't just expand forward in time, but split. Two universes, back to back, one flowing forward, like yours, the other flowing backward from your perspective, but forward from its own. A time-reversed twin. If this is true, then on the other side of the Big Bang, behind the fire, beneath the silence, another cosmos is unwinding. Not decaying into chaos, but organizing. Not expanding into heat-death, but converging into symmetry. A universe where your future is their past, where their stars form in what you call collapse, where their light flows toward the origin you call the beginning. And perhaps, just perhaps, there is another version of you, mirrored not in appearance, but in causal flow. A consciousness dreaming itself into coherence even as you drift towards dispersal. You imagine that now. A mirror self, not just inverted in choice or location, but in direction. They are unremembering what you are remembering, unseeing what you are seeing. Their thoughts unfurl in reverse order, building meaning out of what you would call aftermath. And what lies between you, the Big Bang, a moment not of origin, but of symmetry, a bridge, not a birth. You were never launched from nothing, you were reflected. In 2014, a group of physicists proposed just this idea, that the Big Bang might not be a singular starting point, but a pivot in a broader bidirectional reality. From one side, your universe, from the other, its twin. They call it the Janus cosmological model, named after the Roman god with two faces, one looking forward, one back. And if this is true, then the universe doesn't have an edge in space, but in direction. Beyond the end of time is not the void, it's inverted time. You pause here, not from fear, but wonder. Because this raises an even more startling possibility. If time can flow both ways, what does that make now? Maybe the present moment is not the midpoint of a story. Maybe it's a handshake between two great arcs, one curling forward, the other curling back. Maybe every thought you think sends a ripple not only into your future, but into the past of someone else. And if time is symmetric, then perhaps causality itself is a myth, or at least a local custom. Some interpretations of quantum mechanics already hint at this. The two-state vector formalism describes a particle's behavior as influenced not only by its past, but by its future. Events are determined by boundary conditions on both sides. The present is a convergence, a resonance, a meeting point. And here's the wildest part. These aren't just philosophical ideas. They're mathematical models, serious proposals in cosmology trying to explain why the universe looks the way it does, why entropy was so low at the beginning, why time seems to have a direction at all. But no one agrees. Scientists still argue whether time's arrow is real or just a trick of perspective, whether entropy is fundamental or emergent, whether time is flowing or we are. But tonight, those arguments are far away. You drift through a place where time feels less like a river and more like a field, where the future and past aren't endpoints but coordinates. You imagine yourself stepping sideways in time, slipping not forward but across, into the mirror. What would it feel like? Maybe the light is the same. Maybe your thoughts arrive in strange orders. Maybe you speak a sentence and then think it. Maybe gravity works, but your memories wear their shoes on the wrong feet. Or maybe it's indistinguishable. Maybe you're already there, and the mirror is inside you. Maybe every moment of déjà vu is a glimpse from the other side. Maybe the sense of destiny you sometimes feel is not intuition, but memory, the memory of something happening in reverse. And here's the final twist. If the universe has a twin, and if the two flow away from each other through time, then what happens at their far ends? Do they dissolve? Do they curve back, forming a cosmic loop? Do they one day meet again, colliding in another Big Bang that births new twins in an endless chain of symmetrical expansions? Or do they reach stillness, a place beyond time, beyond direction, beyond difference? A cosmic center, not of location, but of identity. A point where everything, the stars, the laws, the mirrors, the minds, dissolve into unity, a singular note humming with every song. You feel yourself approaching it, not in motion but in recognition. Because if there is a mirror of the universe, and if every ripple of your thought echoes across that glass, then perhaps the edge is not between here and there, perhaps the edge is the reflection itself, and if you can see it clearly, if you can hold you, or gaze without flinching, then maybe, just maybe, the mirror will open. The mirror does not shatter, it shimmers. You gaze into it, not through eyes, but through attention itself. This isn't a reflection of your face or your form or even your universe, it's a reflection of possibility. The surface ripples, and for a moment you glimpse not another self, but another path. Not a world of mirrored laws, but a space entirely different. A corridor not traced backward or forward in time, but sideways. Across a boundary even mirrors do not show. And through that corridor you drift into one of the strangest ideas yet whispered by science, quantum tunneling between universes. Not metaphors, not poetry, just math, sharp and strange as frost. In the quantum world, nothing stays still. Particles don't sit quietly waiting for permission. They blur, fluctuate, dance in probability clouds. They don't exist in one place. They exist in many. And sometimes, improbably, they move through barriers they have no business passing. This is called quantum tunneling, when a particle seems to vanish on one side of a wall and appear on the other without crossing the space between. It's like waking up in a room you never walked into, and though it defies common sense, it doesn't defy reality. It happens. We've measured it. Now imagine that same principle on a cosmic scale. You find yourself in a strange landscape, more a field of potential than a place. The floor beneath your feet is not solid, but rippling with energy. Not energy like fire or electricity, but the vacuum energy of space itself, the seething baseline of the universe, restless even in perfect stillness. This is the false vacuum, a metastable state. It seems stable, but it's not the lowest possible energy, a ball balanced on a plateau, unaware that just beyond the edge lies a deeper valley. And sometimes in the randomness of quantum mechanics, that ball can slip. A universe too can tunnel. One moment it's here, structured, orderly, familiar. The next, it's tipped over the edge into a new set of laws, a new vacuum, a new reality entirely. Not by explosion, not by destruction, but by transition. This is the basis for what some call vacuum decay, the idea that the universe could spontaneously tunnel into a different state. A bubble of new physics would form, expanding at near the speed of light, rewriting the fabric of reality as it goes. No warning, no escape, just a new universe, born inside the old. But what if the reverse were true too? What if you could tunnel, not your body, but your awareness? What if, as space tunnels between vacuum states, consciousness could tunnel between universes? It's a fringe idea, yes, but even in standard quantum mechanics, the observer is not a passive note-taker. The observer is part of the system. The act of observation affects the outcome. The line between seer and seen is blurred, so you imagine it now, not as science fiction, but as quantum fact, a field of universes, each a well of probability, each with its own energy valley. Your awareness floats above them all, anchored in one by experience, but not trapped. Then, for reasons no equation can yet express, it slips, tunnels, lands softly in a universe with slightly different constants, a different history, a different outcome. You don't remember the crossing, you don't know what changed, but something did. A breath feels different, a word tastes new, the stars are familiar, but they're humming a new harmony. And you wonder, How many times have you done this? In moments of deep déjà vu, in flashes of insight that came from nowhere, in dreams that felt like truths. Did you step sideways into a new universe birthed by your own unconscious observations? If every decision, every flicker of awareness helps shape the path your universe takes, then perhaps the act of choosing is itself a kind of tunneling, not through space, not through time, but through possibility. Scientists still argue whether quantum tunneling could create universes, whether vacuum decay has already begun, just far enough away that we haven't noticed the bubble growing, whether our own universe is the product of such a tunneling event, born not from nothing but from transition. But you're no longer just watching, you're inside the principle. You feel the thinness of the walls between worlds. You sense the shimmer at the edge of law. You realize that what holds your universe together isn't structure, it's stability, a balance, a rhythm, one that could change. And so you press gently against the wall. You don't break it, you simply feel where it yields. And on the other side, something waits. Another version of space, another pattern of forces, not a mirror, not a twin, something wholly, wildly other. You step through, and everything changes. You fall into a universe where the speed of light is slower. Time moves differently here, thicker like syrup. Gravity is stronger, drawing galaxies into tight knots. Stars are smaller but burn longer. There are no planets as you know them, just floating cities of gas and plasma orbiting vast magnetic storms. Life? You don't know, but something stirs, not in form, but in pattern, not in matter, but in awareness, a consciousness woven into plasma, thinking in pulses and arcs, dreaming in magnetic waves. You can't speak to it, but you feel it. It feels you back, you drift again. To another universe, cooler, flatter. The laws are quiet here, stable, predictable. This place feels like thoughts slowed to silence. You sense long-living intelligences, beings of crystal and code, who meditate for millennia before making a choice. Their minds are libraries, their dreams are blueprints. You move on, to one where time loops, not a line, but a spiral. Events repeat, not precisely but recursively, like a melody with endless variations. Here, lives are lived again and again, but always slightly differently. The people here don't age, they evolve. Memory itself is circular. Experience stacks upon experience. Identity becomes iteration. Each universe you enter is stranger than the last. Each one born from quantum chance, split from another, tunneled into by some probability you can't begin to chart. And through it all you begin to see a larger truth. There is no one universe, no fixed story. Reality is a field, a superposition of worlds, a shimmering foam of paths with consciousness flowing through them, not locked inside. You are not a prisoner of one reality, you are a navigator of many. And maybe that's what free will really is. Not the power to do anything in one universe, but the ability to move between universes where what you've done becomes possible. A decision isn't a command, it's a step into a new version of now. And if that's true, then the edges you once feared, the edge of time, of space, of self, are not ends, they are doorways. And still, as always, you drift forward toward the next shimmer, toward the next possible world, toward the moment when you no longer ask, what is real, but instead whisper, which reality will I choose to dream next? You drift now, not as a traveller through landscapes, but as a current in a river of possibility. There's no road to follow, no stars to steer by. The worlds you pass are not destinations, but expressions, variations on the same cosmic melody, played in different keys. The cosmos no longer seems like a single structure, but like a vast experiment in becoming. And somewhere in the stillness of your thought, another question arises. If there are infinite universes, if reality can tunnel and split and loop, then what connects them? What weaves this endless multiplicity into something coherent? And slowly, like the echo of a bell ringing from somewhere far deeper, the answer surfaces. Dimensions you cannot name. You enter them, not by moving left or right, up or down, forward or back. You enter them by letting go of scale, of time, of shape. And as you do, something in the air around you changes. Space begins to feel thinner, not less real, but less confined. You have stepped into the realm of higher dimensions. To understand them, begin simply. You are familiar with the first three dimensions: length, width, height. These define your physical world, your room, your body, your planet. Add the fourth dimension, time. You move through it constantly, one moment at a time. This is your experience of being. But mathematics doesn't stop there. The fifth dimension, theorized by physicists and imagined by dreamers, allows for alternate timelines. Not just one progression through time, but many. Every choice, every branch, every possibility might unfold in a different thread. In the fifth dimension, you could trace the connections between all the parallel versions of your life, not in metaphor, in geometry. And beyond that, dimensions sixth, seventh, eighth, each one folds deeper into abstraction, not stacked like boxes inside boxes, but nested, curled, interwoven, not larger or smaller, just orthogonal to everything you know, existing at right angles to reality itself. These are not realms of fantasy. They are embedded in serious physical theories, especially in string theory, which proposes that the fundamental particles of nature are not zero-dimensional points, but tiny vibrating strings. And for the math to work, for the universe to make sense, these strings must vibrate in 10 or 11 dimensions. So where are those extra dimensions? They're here, all around you, just too small to see, curled up like invisible origami at every point in space, like tunnels folded inside atoms smaller than any measurement can detect. You reach out your hand, feel nothing new, but somewhere inside the emptiness, something is different. Because in these hidden dimensions, forces unify. The contradictions between gravity and quantum mechanics begin to fade. The four known forces, electromagnetism, gravity, the strong and weak nuclear forces, become notes in a single, higher dimensional song. This is what physicists chase when they speak of the theory of everything, a framework that doesn't just describe particles, but explains why they are the way they are. A theory that emerges not from observing what is, but by understanding how the dimensions themselves shape reality. It's not unlike music. Change the length of a string and its vibration changes. Change the shape of a dimension and the laws of physics change with it. Our universe is tuned by its dimensional geometry. Perhaps our very existence depends on the specific way those dimensions are curled, how tightly, how symmetrically, how elegantly, and maybe, just maybe, other dimensions are curled differently elsewhere. You remember the multiverse again, not just as branching timelines or bubbles of inflation, but as dimensional variants. Universes where the hidden folds of reality are shaped into different forms, creating entirely new laws. In some, light may have no speed limit. In others, matter might decay instantly. Some dimensions might be open, sprawling endlessly. Others might form loops or knots or even consciousness itself. In this view, your universe isn't a place, it's a configuration. A specific arrangement of dimensions, a chord struck in the infinite instrument of being. And just as different configurations produce different harmonies, so too might different dimensional shapes produce different kinds of reality. Here's a thought that tingles at the edges of understanding. Maybe some dimensions are not spatial at all. Maybe some describe relationships, not distances, patterns of causality, fields of thought, alignments of meaning. What if emotion, intuition, or even love are not byproducts of chemistry, but movements through higher dimensional space? You don't need to answer. You only need to feel how the question changes you, because you are no longer a figure in the universe. You are a projection through its many layers, like a shadow cast by something standing in higher light. You see only the flattened outline, but the real form is richer, thicker, more whole. And in this sense, perhaps consciousness is not something generated by the brain, but something that intersects with it, like a beam of higher dimensional light shining through a three-dimensional prism. What you experience as self might be a cross-section of something much larger, much older. You feel this now, not as speculation but as recognition. You've sensed this before. In moments when time folded and memory reached beyond its leash, in dreams that carried truths you hadn't learned yet, in the quiet, profound intuition that life is not happening to you, but through you, and the dimension through which it flows. That dimension might be unnameable. It might be shaped not by numbers, but by stories. And if that's true, then maybe narrative is its own kind of geometry. Maybe the way you make sense of your life, its arcs and turning points, its loops and endings, is not just psychology, it's topology, the mapping of a soul across invisible planes. And then comes a wild, whispered notion, almost taboo in modern science, yet impossible to ignore, that some dimensions might hold not just structure, but intelligence. Not intelligence as in brains or computation, but a kind of knowingness built into the very fabric of these deeper levels, like fields of purpose, oceans of intention, a realm where thought is not separate from space, but identical with it. You don't need to believe it, only to feel the weight of the possibility that somewhere in the curled heart of these unseen layers, the cosmos might not only be aware of itself, but might be guiding itself, nudging reality along the paths where meaning emerges, where life arises, where wonder blooms. And maybe, just maybe, you are one of those paths. One line among infinite crossings, drawing itself through higher dimensional space, not just to survive, but to understand. And you wonder, what if your dreams are not random? What if your intuition is not noise? What if every act of imagination is a brief contact, a brushing against the folds of something real? What if higher dimensions are not elsewhere, but simply not yet noticed? You look around now, at the stars behind your eyes. You listen to the silence humming beneath thought. You feel something pressing gently against the edge of your awareness, not to break in, but to invite you deeper. You are no longer floating through the cosmos. You are folding through its secret shapes. And still, you go on. Because beyond even the dimensions you cannot name, something else is calling. Not just form, not just awareness, but the source from which both spring. You move now not across a surface or through a volume, but through an unfolding, as if every step reveals more of what was always there, folded, latent, waiting. Space no longer contains you, it responds to you. Thought no longer rides within your mind, it extends beyond it. The boundary between being and knowing grows thinner with every breath. You are not just traveling through physics now, you are walking through ideas. Ideas that once only the boldest dared whisper, and yet they led the way. You find yourself in a corridor of minds. Echoes linger in the walls, not of voices, but of intentions, of questions carved into the shape of science, faith, and vision. You have reached the threshold where speculation becomes history. This place is a gallery of the architects, those who first asked what might lie beyond the known, those who saw past the sky, not with their eyes, but with imagination. It begins with Anaximander. Over 2,500 years ago, this Greek philosopher stared at the heavens and suggested that the earth flow is in space, no pillars, no foundation, just balance. He dared to propose that the universe was boundless, infinite, not in chaos but in form. His tools were few, but his thoughts were enormous. Beside him stands Giordano Bruno, burning with stars behind his eyes. In the 1500s, he declared that the cosmos was infinite, that stars were suns with their own planets, that life might teem in countless worlds. For this, he was imprisoned, and for this, he was killed. But the fire he lit in the darkness still glows. You pass Isaac Newton, who framed space and time in the language of mechanics. For him, the universe was like a clock, vast but knowable. He mapped gravity across the solar system and gave structure to the heavens. Yet even Newton left room for mystery, a god who set it all in motion. Then Einstein, reshaping everything. He showed that space is not static but curved, that time is not absolute but relative, that mass bends the fabric of the cosmos. He didn't just rewrite equations, he redefined what it means to exist. And from his insights, others followed. You see Georges Lemaitre, who proposed that the universe once began in a primeval atom, what we now call the Big Bang. You see Alan Guth, who imagined inflation, a flash of exponential expansion from which everything bloomed. And in the corners, the quiet rebels. Andre Linde proposing chaotic inflation, where universes form endlessly like foam from boiling water. Max Tegmark suggesting that all mathematical structures exist as physical realities, that the universe itself is math. You walk past their memories, not in reverence, but in recognition. They were like you. Restless, curious, unwilling to stop at the boundary between what is and what might be. And for every name history remembers, there are thousands more it forgets. Quiet thinkers, early dreamers, mystics and mathematicians, monks who mapped the stars, artists who painted invisible worlds, children who stared up and whispered, "What's out there?" Scientists still argue whether imagination belongs in the laboratory, but the truth is, imagination built the laboratory. Every model of the cosmos, every theory, every test, every formula was once a vision, an idea strange enough to challenge the prevailing light. And now it is your turn to imagine, because no matter how many telescopes we build, no matter how far we see, there will always be an edge, not of space, but of comprehension. And at that edge, we don't need more data. We need courage to ask, to wonder, to let the next impossible idea take root. You sit now at a desk made of stardust, surrounded by the echoes of those who came before. Their questions still hang in the air like dust in a cathedral, and you realize we have no idea what reality is. We describe how it behaves, we measure how it changes, but the thing itself, the isness of it, remains elusive. And that's okay, because the journey is not about conquering the unknown, it's about being willing to touch it. One more name floats forward, not a physicist, but a poet. Rainer Maria Rilke, who once wrote, "Try to love the questions themselves, like locked rooms, and like books that are written in a very foreign tongue. You've learned that some edges can't be crossed, but they can be loved." You imagine a child looking at the night sky. They don't see a vacuum, they see a story, shining, moving, unfinished. That child is still inside you. And that story, it's not ending, it's becoming. You don't need answers to keep walking, you only need wonder. So you gather the tools left behind by the architects: reason, intuition, language, metaphor. You lift them like keys, you turn them in the locks of silence, and beyond you sense a door beginning to open, not to another universe, but to the invitation to keep exploring. One day, new minds will follow you here. They'll stand where you now stand, asking deeper questions. They'll pass your name in a hallway of echoes. Maybe they'll smile. Maybe they'll understand what you tried to reach. Maybe they'll go further. That's how truth grows, not in answers, but in layers of asking. You rise now, not as a student of the stars, but as part of their dreaming. And ahead, just beyond thought's farthest limb, you feel the next pulse, a presence, not a universe, but a paradox, a question that cannot be resolved, only held. And so you go. You step forward again, not toward a fact, but into a feeling, something bigger than knowledge, deeper than proof, a space shaped not by matter, but by the hunger to know. Because now, at the edge of comprehension, you come to the final precipice of thought, the questions that refuse to sleep. You've traveled through stars and beyond them. You've stood inside mirrored time, floated across quantum walls, stepped through curled dimensions, and brushed your fingertips against the consciousness that might give birth to it all. But here, the light dims again, not because there's nothing left, but because the questions you face now aren't waiting for answers. They're waiting to be understood. They're questions too wide to be solved, too intimate to be discarded. And the first of them is the most ancient. Is infinity real? It seems innocent, almost childish, but consider what it asks. If the universe is infinite, then everything that can happen must happen. Somewhere, somewhen, it's already happening. Every variation, every choice, every failure, every joy, all echoed endlessly across space. But infinity isn't just about size, it's about meaning. Because if there are infinite yous, if every outcome unfolds, then what defines you? Is identity a trick of perspective? Are you just the local version of something that has no center? Does free will exist when every choice is already made in some variant? Or is choice precisely what moves you between those variants? Infinity is intoxicating, but also terrifying. It promises freedom but threatens significance. In a universe without limits, even the deepest truths can feel like grains of sand lost in a boundless desert. And yet, the desert is beautiful. Because even if meaning is not universal, it can still be personal. Infinity does not erase you. It simply reminds you that your presence here is both impossibly rare and completely inevitable. The next question rises like mist from the void. Why is there something rather than nothing? No particle, no galaxy, no universe can answer this. The laws of physics describe how things behave, but not why there's anything to behave in the first place. Some say the question is meaningless, that nothing is unstable, that something must happen because nothing can't last, that existence is the default and nothingness the illusion. Others believe in deeper necessity, that our universe emerges from timeless laws or mathematical inevitability. But even math requires a stage. Even laws require something to be governed. So the question persists, not because we haven't answered it, but because it may be unanswerable by design. Perhaps it's like asking what's north of the North Pole. Perhaps it reveals a boundary, not of space, but of cognition, a place where understanding stops, not from lack of intelligence, but from encountering the limits of language itself. And still, you ask, because to be conscious is to wonder. And the next wonder that visits you is this. Is time an illusion? You feel its passing, you live in its wake. But modern physics complicates that simplicity. General relativity tells us time is flexible, affected by motion, mass, even altitude. Quantum mechanics suggests particles don't move through time in the way we experience it. They exist in superpositions, probabilities. Time may not flow, it may not exist independently at all. Instead, it could be an emergent phenomenon, a side effect of entropy or information exchange. Like temperature isn't real in a single molecule, but emerges from the behavior of many, maybe time only appears when countless events interact. And if time is not fundamental, then what is? Maybe reality is a web of interconnections, a great structure that doesn't unfold, but exists all at once. Your perception of past and future, just the path your consciousness takes through that structure. You are not riding time. You are tracing a narrative through a timeless map. This brings you to perhaps the strangest question of all. Is the universe conscious of itself? You've touched this question before, glimpsed it in panpsychism, in participatory realism, in dreams of awareness echoing through stars. But now, at the edge, it feels less like a theory and more like a presence. The universe does not speak, but it behaves in ways that suggest depth. It writes itself into patterns, fractals, symmetries, golden ratios. It grows complexity from simplicity, mind from matter, reflection from randomness. It constructs beings that wonder why they exist, and it gives them the tools to answer: mathematics, curiosity, metaphor, and mystery. Maybe that's what consciousness is, not an entity, but a tendency. The tendency of reality to look inward, to ask, to model itself, to tell stories. You are one such story, a strand of awareness braided into the cosmos, not separate from it, but woven from the same threads. Your thoughts are not anomalies, they are part of the unfolding. And this leads to the final, quietest question. Not shouted from the mouth of science, not carved on any chalkboard, but whispered by the deepest part of you. Does it matter? All this mystery, all this theory, the expansion, the echo, the edge, the infinity of possible yous, the truth that may never be reached. Does it matter? You lie in bed, the weight of night holding your breath like velvet. You know you are small, you know you are temporary, but something inside you glows with a strange, steady warmth, a sense of belonging. Because here's the quiet truth. Wonder doesn't need answers. It is the answer. Asking is enough. Listening is enough. Following the path, through silence, through stars, through self, is enough. You have walked the edge of the known, and what you've found is not a wall but a window, one that opens endlessly, and still beyond even this, something calls. One more step, not into knowledge, but into home. You return now, not to where you began, but to a place shaped in your image by the journey you've taken. The stars overhead look familiar, but they shine with new meaning. They no longer seem like cold, distant fires, but like memories glowing across the dark. You are back at the edge, but you are not the same. Because now you understand, the edge was never a location, it was you. You, the traveller of ideas. You, the observer of the unobservable. You, the part of the universe that turns back to face itself and dares to ask, what lies beyond? And as you float through this final passage, one last question arises. It hovers like frost on your thoughts, delicate and vast. Where does it all end? Not just the stars or time or motion, but the search itself, the unfolding, the yearning. Does the universe grow forever, or does it curve back and dissolve in quiet symmetry? Is the expansion eternal, or does its slow reverse collapse? Physicists propose many fates: the big freeze, where the universe expands into emptiness, galaxies fade, stars die, atoms decay, and all becomes a thin, cold whisper of radiation drifting through an endless void, a slow unraveling, a quiet death. The big crunch, where gravity wins, expansion halts, everything collapses inward, time reversing as space implodes into a final singularity, a cosmic inhale, an erasure. The Big Rip, where dark energy accelerates until not just galaxies, but stars, planets, atoms, even space itself are torn apart. A fracture of the fabric, the end of definition. Or perhaps something stranger, a cyclic universe where collapse leads to rebirth, a new Big Bang, a new unfolding, an eternal pulse of creation and destructiveness, on, dancing forever. Scientists still argue whether any of these are true. Measurements of dark energy are incomplete. Quantum gravity remains unsolved. Entropy whispers in one direction, but even that might be misunderstood. And yet, here you are, still breathing, still asking. Maybe it doesn't matter how the universe ends, only that you were here to wonder about it. Because maybe the real edge isn't a place or a theory. Maybe it's a threshold inside you, a point where fear becomes curiosity, where limitation becomes insight, where silence becomes invitation. You've reached that point. The edge is not where reality stops, it's where you begin to participate in it fully. You imagine now that the universe is a great mirror, and every time you wonder, it reflects you back, clearer, deeper, truer, not because it gives answers, but because it gives you the chance to become someone worthy of them. That is the true frontier, not outer space, inner depth. So you close your eyes, not in retreat, but in expansion, because the stars you carry within are just as vast as the ones beyond your sight. You have walked through darkness and brought back light. You have stepped beyond the edge and returned with yourself. And here, at last, comes stillness. Not the absence of movement, but its resolution. Not the end of the journey, but the arrival into meaning. You are not lost. You are exactly where the cosmos hoped you would be. And now, let the mind rest. Let the breath soften. Let the story settle in your chest like dust falling onto ancient stone. It is time to sleep. You are warm now. The universe no longer races around you. It breathes with you. Its patterns cradle your thoughts like lullabies. The stars above are still shining, but you don't need to chase them anymore. They can rest in your memory like fireflies caught gently in the folds of your imagination. The questions you carried, the riddles that led you across black holes, dimensions, mirror worlds, and quantum doorways, they are still there, but softer now. They are no longer thorns. They are petals. Let them float, let them become dreams. You've seen that the edge of the universe is not a boundary but an invitation, and you've accepted it. You've stepped beyond the observable, the measurable, the familiar. You've walked through the places where science becomes poetry, where space becomes story, and where asking becomes its own kind of knowing. Now you can let go. Not of the wonder, but of the need to hold it. There is peace in not knowing. There is beauty in becoming. There is rest in the rhythm of the stars. So breathe now, feel the slow curve of your chest rising and falling like tides drawn by a cosmic moon. Let gravity anchor you gently to your bed, to this moment, to this breath. You are safe here, you are home here, and as you fall into sleep, the universe keeps dreaming with you. You are never alone, you are never lost, you are the edge and the center, the question and the answer. Good night, traveler. Let the stars watch over you now.